powering trusted identities of the world's people, places, and things. Every day, millions of people in more than 100 countries use our products and services to securely access physical and digital places. Over 2 billion things that need to be identified, verified, and tracked are connected through HID Global's technology.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us again today. We've got another podcast on physical identity and access management. Today, we're going to take a vertical approach. We're going to talk about aviation, which has really been an interesting topic since I joined HID, that it's a lot more nuanced than I would have expected. You know, we're all familiar with going to an airport, and we usually think of airport security in terms of us as the passenger or whatever entering through DHS checkpoints and all of that. But I've learned in that time there's a lot more to it once you think about the actual airport and the employees of all the different companies that are in there, and really how few of those are actually employed by the airport themselves. And so there's a really interesting relationship on the security side when you think about all of those individuals that are there, the barista at Starbucks, the person handling the jewelry sales that is in the secured area, the members of DHS and TSA that are walking through, and all of those different things. And so today I've got Russ Compton and Yves Massard, and I'll let them give a quick introduction on, and we're going to spend a bit of time talking about identity management solutions in the aviation space. Russ, before we get started, why don't you do a quick introduction on yourself?
Thanks a lot, Matt, and thanks for having me today. Again, I'm with HID. My name is Russell Compton. I'm the director for aviation. I've been involved in aviation about 7 years. And a lot of my peers in the industry have been 20 plus years, but I'll tell you what, I've enjoyed my time here and really been focused on identity management the whole time. So have a good background on that and look forward to talking more about that with you, Matt. Thank you.
Great. And Yves, what about yourself?
Hey, thanks, Matthew. This is Yves Massard. I'm also with HID. I'm a director of product management at HID, and one of my area of focus is the aviation vertical.
So what got us on this kind of episode, I guess you'd say, today was we were talking a few weeks back, and we're just kind of talking about the customer base. And by and large, we've got a pretty good set of customers, a lot of airports we travel through probably. And we were doing a bit of a comparison of some of those larger airports. And Russ, you made a point around smaller airports. There's actually a ton of them. Small being a relative term, really, in aviation. Talking about number of people kind of walking through the airport and getting on planes and all that. But all of those airports we think about that are regional, or maybe flying from out of like a Little Rock or an Oklahoma City or something like that. They're not the big SFOs, LAXs, New York airports, DFWs, and things like that. But even they know about these identity management solutions, but they may not view them the same way as some of those larger airports. And Russ, you made a comment about how a lot of times they may think they're too much, to put that in quotes, those identity management solutions. Can you talk a little bit about why a smaller airport might think a solution like ours, our identity management solution, might be too much for them?
Yeah. And I think that's a great point. And you can look at too much in multiple ways. You can say, hey, it's too much of a cost because we looked at it at one time and it was too much. Or it's too much for us to manage because we have limited resources. And I've been to events and I've talked to smaller airports, and sometimes you get to talking about hot topics, and some of them might not relate to smaller airports. But it's been this time with identity management where we have a mature product that started development back in 2003, and there are some changes, rather radical recently, with our solution that has enabled it to not be what you call too much. So one of the things I want to share is airports pay by size with our software solution. Now, large airports always have a larger buying power generally, and you normally see that they can afford enterprise products. But this particular identity management system what we've done is scale it to work with the amount of badges that you have at the airport. So an airport, like you mentioned before, DFW might have, who knows, 30, 40,000 badges. We're going to price that software solution based on that size. And that's going to turn around and reflect and help a smaller airport get in to this identity management system. Part two of that is that you only have to buy what you need. The solution is modularized, but the baseline safe system that we deploy, that all airports will get, we really think smaller airports can utilize that baseline system and not have to, pick and choose from some of these modules that give you, more of the Cadillac type service of it. And that saves on cost. And the last thing, and I know we'll get into in detail, is it is a COT solution, commercial off the shelf, meaning you're going to buy the same solution that the other airports are using. And that's going to be great because it's configurable, it is easy to set up, and it's easy to maintain in the future. And we'll break that down in a minute. But really, it is an entry level now for smaller airports to get in based on those reasons.
Eve, you have any thoughts on COTS out of the box? Those are all phrases you and I know very well from kind of the product management, product marketing world within software. Any thoughts on how that's maybe evolved in this space a little bit, and how you think of that kind of moniker, really?
Yeah, definitely. So just to be clear, COTS means common off the shelf, and the idea is that a customer is able to buy a product and deploy it without having to do any customization. When you look at the aviation sector, a lot of the things that drives the existence of IDMS stem from 9/11 and the regulation that came after TSA was created. Airports have to comply with those regulations, and a lot of that drives that. So the IDMS software that were created, 20, 15 years ago, have had a lot of time to mature, and there's been a lot of commonality that became clearer as those solutions were deployed at customers, and that enabled us to build a product that's COTS, common off the shelf, where all the required capability that are needed to meet the TSA compliance are built into the product. We still see customers wanting to have flexibility and customization, but if you are a medium size or smaller airport, you might be just fine with what comes out of the product. And if you take the product as is, and you might do configuration, but you don't need to do customization, you're going to save a lot of money in terms of not having to finance the custom development, but also not having to finance the maintenance of that custom development, which over the years do add up. So the maturation of that industry and the ability we had to be able to build what's needed into the product out of the box is really making it much more affordable to customer. And I also want to add that over the years, there's also additional delivery method that were not possible before. And one that's more and more popular is being able to deliver that via the cloud instead of having to install that software on premise. That also can significantly cut the cost for customers, because it's not just about licensing the software, but it's also about running it and maintaining it. And that's an area where also customer can benefit from savings from evolution in the marketplace.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think these kind of larger products that have kind of grown out of the higher end of the market as they've evolved, and we've really pushed them into the cloud. It's really made a big impact on those smaller organizations being able to take something, because they're not an IT shop, nor should they be. So I think it's great to see us pushing that forward for customers on that topic. So just Russ, you said something earlier that got me thinking a little different. Topic we've talked on commercial off the shelf, and Eve, you touched on it a little bit, which is, I have to think some of these smaller airports think that there are I don't know how to say this. Maybe their processes are sufficient today, or they've got what they need. That they're good enough. We're getting by. What should they think about these airports as they're thinking about whether that really is the case? Is there something that these identity management solutions like SAFE that we're talking about bring over and above? I don't even know what they're doing today, really. Probably Excel and some other things, PAX systems. But can you elaborate maybe on what processes we might be touching on?
Sure. Yeah. As long as you're following the regulations, of course, which are TSAs 1542, you are getting by and you are doing the right thing. But what brought an identity management system in terms of aviation was to market was it is very complex what you have to do. And we have put everything in terms of a workflow into one single solution, which is great. And that eliminates duplicate data input. So any airport that has to go and capture information on a badge applicant and then submit that for a fingerprint, which is going to give you a background check into the FBI, you're already putting data information in. And then if you got to go into a training or a learning management system, you got to type in that person's information at that point. And then finally get to that point of, I got to put them in the physical access control. One of the things that's really going to help any airport, regardless of size, but especially small airports too, who have limited resources, is ability to type that information one time into one system, and then that system will disperse that information based on integrations. I think that's a huge thing as well. And the other thing you think about is TSA will eventually come knocking on the door and say, hey, tell us about this guy that we, found in Terminal 3 and had a badge XYZ, whatever that investigation might be. You have that information in one single source of truth, which is the identity management system we call SAFE. And it's going to have every information about when that badge was supplied, what training they've taken, and really what's the history of their access around the airport. So it's going to help you manage the process of any investigation or any questions that might come up on any particular badge holder.
Yeah, that makes sense. Being able to understand who's there, why they're there, who made decisions on the levels of access, when those decisions were made, all of that definitely going to play into an audit, and definitely going to be something that being able to print out a report instead of, I'll get back to you in a week after I cobble that report together for you, definitely makes it's going to be a lot of savings. It's also going to be a big risk reduction, in terms of having those auditors on site being able to say, yeah, we applied all the controls and policies we needed to, and here is that proof. That makes sense. You touched on something, and Eve, I want to actually pivot over to you. Russ talked a little bit about integration. Talk to me a little bit about that in this space, because I heard PAX, I heard fingerprint systems, I heard all sort training, all sorts of other systems. What role do you see integration playing as maybe a central part of this whole thing?
Yeah, it's actually vital. When you look at our offering, our SAFE offering, it does provide you with the ability to do the compliance, but the way it does that is by connecting to a lot of different systems. Yeah. You might be using an identity provider to onboard your identity, at least for the system users. You definitely will want to connect to a live scan in order to get to fingerprint the applicants. You'll want to connect to your PAC system so that the badge are provisioned, and they provision as the badge are issued, they're lost, they're renewed, and so on. You may optionally want to connect to a training system to be able to recover the status of the training without having to manually input it into the system. So a lot of those integrations are about automation, which means that it turns into savings for your organization, because it means that you have less manual things to do with the system. Also, it provides you with a more up-to-date and accurate status on where you are for your applicants and the different steps of the process and the status of those different areas. So the the integration are really critical to the deployment, because you want to have things that deploy easily, that are automated, so that you don't have to maintain them as much. And that's really how those integration helps you do that. The great thing about Safe is that it comes with a large number of integration out of the box.
Okay.
If one of your system is not supported by Safe, we can also we have standard packages in order to add additional integration. But there's a vast number of integration that comes off the box, which means that it's ready to go for most of the customers that are out there.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think back to one of the points Russ made early on. The solution's been in development for a number of years, especially with airports. So having those out of the box, off the shelf, whatever you want to call them, integrations is going to be really important for the airports that aren't the DFWs of the world. Any examples from either of you, from customers you've had conversations with? You don't have to name names, just maybe an example, anecdote from any customer conversations about some ways this has helped them, maybe even some that you maybe wouldn't expect.
Yeah, let me give an example of a customer we're currently deploying. It's a small airport. They've used our Safe solution for a while. Now they're upgrading to our most recent platform. And with our most recent platform, we have an enhancement of a tablet solution that can be handed to a badge applicant, where they can verify their information, check boxes, which have to do with disqualifying crimes. Have you, asking that badge applicant, have you been involved in airport piracy? 27 different questions or so about what would disqualify you from having a job here. Well, this smaller airport said, hey, we like to scan that information on disqualifying crimes. We also have them read this piece of paper about the Privacy Act, where we tell them we're going to do a background check. So we're not really interested in doing the tablet. We want to keep our standard process here. This solution has the ability to turn things on and off and configure them the way you like. So we were able to disable the functionality on the tablet, but also add the ability when capturing documents to require 2 additional documents on the back end, which are those scan documents. So it's highly configurable, and it's going to fit needs of airports as you move forward. That's one example of just the configurability side.
And Yves, I feel like I've heard reference to a quote unquote HID safe room from one of our customers. Do you know the urban legend that I'm talking about?
Definitely. An airport customer had a room that was wholly dedicated in holding all the paperwork that the applicant would file. And by deploying Safe, they were able to, because everything is digitized, they were able to get rid of that archive room and reuse it for something else. So they called it the Safe room because that room was freed up thanks to the deployment of Safe.
Both funny and actually really powerful in kind of what it can do. So, well, cool. Well, I'm going to give both of you a little bit of time back. We've had a good conversation. I think there's probably some topics we can pick up in maybe another episode if you're amenable to that. But we've talked a little bit about how we have advanced, I'd say, the IDMS solutions now with our Safe product over that 20-year plus partnership, almost 20 plus years partnership with the aviation space. How we've really driven that forward, a lot of the benefits that customers are going to get, whether they're small, medium, large, and how that kind of modular approach we're taking with the solution can really make a big difference, plus the managed services kind of aspect. So thank you both for your time, and let's get out there and help solve some customer problems. I appreciate it, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Take care.